What's up, everybody? Welcome back into an episode of The Lawyer You Know, and I'm excited to be bringing Evan on, juror number 6 from the Don Adelson trial. We broke down his interview with Joel from STS. He talked about watching this trial and what did it make him think, what did it make him do, but want to become a lawyer, specifically watching the prosecutors. He said he's not an expert on what the lawyers are doing in the courtroom, but we're going to break down exactly what he thought and what he saw that made him interested in law school, what type of law potentially would he be interested in, and the track to get there, and what he saw in the courtroom, and how he's going to draw on his experience as a juror when he becomes a lawyer, which is an unusual experience. Not a ton of lawyers have ever sat on juries before and know what it's like sitting back there, what they talk about, what they see, what they think about, and we're going to be able to pick his brain today, and maybe he'll pick mine some as well. So let's get to it. Evan, welcome. Thanks for being with us, man.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So we broke down your interview with Joel last week, and everybody was like, you got to have this guy on. You guys got to talk law school. You got to talk about what he saw, what he thought. And I know you've done a bunch of interviews and talked about, which witnesses you felt were the most compelling and when you felt like they got to beyond a reasonable doubt and how you tried to stay level-headed. And I appreciated those interviews. I know a lot of people watching and listening appreciated those interviews, how you guys really kept at the forefront the presumption of innocence and reasonable doubt, and the state had to overcome it, and the state had the burden. And I think that's awesome. But one of the things that I really want to focus on today was something you said about you're changing your major, have already changed your major to pre-law, and have kind of changed focus from, I think it was engineering, to now pre-law. What are you doing to change that major? What does that actually look like where you're at in your educational journey here?
So I went and spoke to my advisor, I think the second day after the trial let out. It was last week, and I let them know that this experience was really cool, and I want to fully change my major. And they were mildly annoyed with me because now they have to now we have to reset all of my plan for my classes for the next 2 years.
Yep.
So I'm right now I'm sitting on the fence between going for pre-law or legal studies, which is one thing I wanted to get your opinion on at some point
Sure.
about which one I should go for. But yeah, I'm restructuring fully what my education plan is now for the
And
next
you were
2 years.
engineering before?
That's right. I was doing electrical engineering.
Okay. Yeah, I had a bunch of friends in undergrad that did engineering, and I was talking about a lot of them took 5 years to finish because I know it's not easy to go and get your engineering degree. So I can only imagine what it's like switching it up in the middle now. I started out as a biology major and switched to what's going on here. They're starring stuff. Okay. I started out as a biology major and then switched to sport management on a track to go to law school because I talked to my guidance counselor, went through some things, went to law school, obviously now a lawyer. I have a lot of thoughts about undergrad and everything like that. So we can start with that. Let's start with that. What questions do you have about kind of what track you're going on, what your plan is, and then we'll dig into the trial and weave in how we got here as well.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I'm not sure about is what sort of courses you take to get toward a legal specialty, if that's something that you should be trying to figure out in while working in your undergrad, or if that doesn't become necessarily something that I should be looking so much into until getting toward law school.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I've talked to so many people about what a pre-law track looked like. Florida State didn't even have a pre-law track, first off, when I was there. I don't know if they do now or what it looks like, but basically you look at law schools and what it takes to get into the best law school that you can possibly get into. So when it comes to what the best undergraduate degrees are, and I actually just had this conversation, my nephew's 18, just started at Florida State literally this month, and he wants to be a lawyer as well. So there are three basic philosophies. Number one, the most common undergrad major for law school is political science. A lot of people think you have to do that. Some people say it's really hard. Some people say it's not that hard. If you're into it, I can understand why you would want to take it. So that's route number one. Route number two, my advice and kind of what I think is the best route is some kind of business. So you can go into marketing, go into business management, you can go into finance, some type of business degree, because there's so much of an entrepreneurial side to being a lawyer. If you ever want to be a partner in a law firm, if you ever want to have your own firm, you're going to be looking at profits and losses. You're going to have to do marketing. You're going to have to get cases in. You're going to have to deal with HR. You're going to have to deal with hiring employees, dealing with employees. And you don't really learn any of that in law school. They don't teach you anything about, there are some clients about meeting, or some classes about meeting with clients, but nothing about actually running a business. You don't learn that in law school. So if I could go back, that's what I would do, business management. And the third route, which is what I ended up choosing, and I don't think it was bad, but I can understand why people might disagree with it, is one of the two most important things to law school is your GPA and your LSAT score. So I basically picked the easiest major I could find at Florida State, which was sport management, got straight A's the entire time through. So my GPA was literally as high as it could be. Completely wasted my first year on biology, and then basically graduated in 3 years with a sport management major. So my advice would be pick the easiest major, which could be different for you. Like, what are you interested in? What comes natural and easy to you? You can go to law school with an engineering degree. If it's going to really set you back and you like engineering, they like to have a diverse background of majors, right? The one thing I would caution against that some of my friends that were in law school had was an English major, because you learn how to write a different way than law school, and they had to basically change their brain in the way that they would write in law school versus undergrad when they wrote in an English or creative writing major, which you might think lines up with law school, but it really doesn't.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's really interesting. I hadn't even considered doing anything outside of like legal studies or pre-law. I know a lot of people do political science. That's what my minor was initially going to be. It's
Mm-hmm.
because I'm really interested in following global politics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not so sure what now I'm going to go for. Whatever my specialty, whenever I eventually get out of school and start working towards a law degree, I'd love to do something environmental after spending some time doing public defender. Um, and so something like conservation side would be really really cool, but I'm not sure how to get there.
So let's start out by saying there happens to be a law school in the state of Florida that's ranked very, very highly when it comes to environmental law, and it happens to be Florida State University College of Law. I remember when I was there, I think it was like the fifth or sixth best in the entire country in environmental law. Like, it's literally one of the best environmental law schools in the country. But you mentioned public defender there to start, which I think is cool. And I want to know why you're interested in being a public defender, and does it have anything to do with this case and your experience here as a juror?
Partially, I wouldn't say it necessarily comes mostly from that. I'm very big on community service and charity, and I feel like once I work toward getting my law degree, I think I kind of owe some of that back to being public defender. And I feel like it'd be a good humbling experience to spend like 2 years just focusing on just being public defender.
Yeah, and every public defender's office is different. Some I know want 3 year commitments, just because they train you up and they want to get as much out of you as when they train you. But it is a definitely an unsung hero type of position to be in because they're overworked and underpaid. And what was it? Oh, Alan Jackson, who is the lawyer for Karen Reed's case. I know we talked a little bit off air. You don't follow true crime necessarily, but big time criminal defense lawyer, very expensive, and he's earned it. He's worth it. There's a case in California he has where his client has a $4 million bail set, and they asked to get it lowered so that he could pay Jackson's legal fees and for some experts and things like that. And the judge said no. And one of the reasons is there's so many people sitting in jail right now that can't bail themselves out and that have public defenders, that some of whom are great, some of whom are not, because they're so overworked and underpaid. So to have somebody with that mindset that wants to go in, help people, and give back is exactly what we need to try and help balance these scales, because prosecutors have so much more resources and so much more power than even private criminal defense lawyers or public criminal defense lawyers have in our entire country. And I think you were able to kind of see some of that in the trial. When you watched the lawyering in the trial, what were the big differences you noticed between the state attorney's office, the prosecutors, and the defense attorneys in this case?
It felt like they both had a very different style of presenting, and I wasn't sure since this is my first time ever sitting on a jury and really looking into like courtroom stuff. I wasn't sure if that was just like a stylistic decision off of them personally, or if that was part of like more time spent preparing for the trial. Because like as you saw with Miss Kappelman, they had a long, extensive PowerPoint drawn up for pretty much everything, and those take a lot of time to put together.
Yeah. So my thought would be everybody, and this is something, I would encourage you in as well, if you're going to be a trial lawyer, even for a small period of time at the public defender's office as part of your career. But everybody has their own style. It's hard to mimic. Some people try to mimic somebody else as a trial lawyer, kind of like an actor. It's like you are who you are. You can't necessarily, like Brad Pitt can't be Robin Williams and vice versa. So I would say that's the same thing with trial attorneys. Like they do all have very different styles. And I don't think Jackie Fulford could have run technology like Georgia Kaplan did, even if she wanted to. So she's got to kind of lean into the best that she can. But I think that what you're saying is it was much clearer, much easier to follow, and seemed like they were much more prepared because of the way they presented the evidence in the case.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement.
So, from a juror's point of view, that's important to a lawyer. And regardless of what you're good at, you can always get help, right? You can have a paralegal, you can have a kid or a grandkid help you with a PowerPoint, put it together and present it in a way that, regardless of what your style is, you can present it in a way that's easily digestible. And I know you said on your other interview that you're not the expert, you're not a legal expert, so it's hard for you to pass judgment or whatever on how the lawyers acted, but you are the decision maker. And you, as the jury, I say this all the time, I'd much rather the jury and my client, right, the lay people, think I'm a really good lawyer versus the judge and the other lawyers in the courtroom. So what stuck out to you? And let's just start with the prosecution team. What stuck out to you as what they did really well throughout the case, in addition to their PowerPoint presentations?
I felt that they were prepared. Every single question that the defense asked their witness, whenever they went up to cross, it felt like they had considered every single question and had stuff to follow up on. And that was one of the biggest things for me whenever I was watching the trial that made me be like, wow, maybe I might really enjoy this. Was watching Georgia Kaplan cross-examine the witnesses.
Okay, so their preparation specifically is what stuck out to you. And it's funny,
Mhm.
they've tried this case like 4 times. So they're very prepared. It's very similar fact pattern when they tried it against, the other defendants in the conspiracy. And frankly, it gets easier as you go because now you have the fact that this person's been convicted, this person's been convicted, this person's been convicted. What did you think about that, knowing that the other co-conspirators had already been convicted and that was part of your trial? Because so many times when jurors sit there, they don't know what else is happening in the background and if it's a second trial or if somebody else might be involved, but it was so much in the forefront of the trial you sat in. How much did that affect the deliberations and your thought process?
Yeah, I tried not to consider the fact of any other trials in the past. I tried to only focus on what was being presented there, and I know that's not a very interesting answer, but I really tried. Like whenever I said in another interview, I tried not to look at Donna or or anyone in the gallery, like Harvey when I was sitting in the gallery. I tried not to pay attention to them very much and just focus on what was being presented, not think about Charlie's involvement or the fact that he had been convicted. Anything outside of just what was like being published in evidence.
Yeah, so you're saying that the fact that the co-conspirators had already been convicted, that didn't play a part in how you were kind of looking at Donna's involvement.
Right. Yeah, I didn't consider that at all. Now looking at their at the way they present the evidence, I'm sure like that probably does play a role in why they're so efficient with their the way they're presenting the evidence. Because you're right, they have done this 4 times now,
Mhm.
so it makes sense.
And just to give you a little bit of background on the defense attorneys, Donna was planning on using the same defense attorney that Charlie Adelson used. And then that didn't go so well. There was some conflict of interest issues. And so she had to dump him. And then she thought she was going to use another attorney. Then she had to dump him because he had talked to the prior attorney, and the judge was just like, no, we're not going to do this. So she had to get new attorneys, different than what she planned. And even though Charlie's attorney had lost the first trial, he knew all the facts in the argument. So he was obviously going to be more prepared than attorneys jumping on with much less time and notice than the prosecutors had. So that does come into play because lawyers are nothing without preparation. Preparation brings excellence in the way that you're able to present something, and it brings a lot of confidence too, which I think was lacking at times from the defense attorneys. Was there any interaction between the judge and the lawyers that you picked up on and you felt like maybe they screwed up or maybe they did a good job, anything like that throughout the trial?
Yeah, there were things where I'd feel like that it may have seemed that Judge Everett was becoming frustrated with the defense. I know there was one moment that was I feel like later in the trial, probably toward the second week, where um, Mr. Zimmerman or Zellman, that
Mhm.
Mr. Zellman started to question one of Judge Everett's decisions, and they bickered for a minute there before Judge Everett told him to drop it. That's interesting that you brought that up though, because I was wondering as well afterward why she didn't have someone representing her that was based out of in South Florida, because I felt that it was strange that she chose to have two lawyers represent her from Tallahassee area.
So it's funny, and this will just be my guesses, right? So the lawyer she wanted originally was from South Florida, which is where she's from. There's been a lot of discussion about the Adelsons maybe are not super fond of Tallahassee, but that with a Tallahassee jury, sometimes some hometown cooking and some people that are from the area sometimes do better. And people think that from every jurisdiction, and especially as you know, being from Tallahassee, sometimes people have feelings about people from South Florida, especially lawyers from South Florida. So my guess would be eventually she got to the point that she thought hometown lawyers the jury would relate to and like better than maybe some slick lawyer from South Florida.
Right, gotcha.
Was that
I could
something you
see
guys
that.
talked about, like what lawyer she had?
No, I didn't. I don't think we discussed that at all in deliberation. Anything about her selection of lawyers. I think it didn't play a factor at all
Yeah,
into
you were just thinking
deliberation.
about it.
I can just only speak for me in that regard, but yeah, not for me at all.
Was there anything the prosecution did that you thought was not great, like a little cringe, or like why'd they do that, or they went too hard here, or not hard enough there? Anything you can think of just from like the lawyering perspective?
It's hard for me to say. I think that it was laid out in an incredibly professional way. I thought it looked very good the way they presented the evidence. Thought that the order that they brought the witnesses on made it easy to follow what they were trying to present. I thought some of the things that they had put into the slideshows were a bit strange at points. I really had to hold back from letting out an audible laugh in the closing statement when they put the Spider-Man meme up at the during that.
Yep.
So that one was a little bit of a strange decision in such a high-profile case.
Did you know what it meant though?
Yeah, yeah, all of them pointing at each other saying, I'm the guy," or "That's the guy, it couldn't be
Yeah.
me." I got the reference was,
And that's
well
why they did it.
used.
As lawyers, that's why they did it. I get what you're saying. Like maybe is it making light of a serious situation too much? Which is it's hilarious. So that is what lawyers think of. So it's like, okay, this works so perfectly, and I don't even have to say a word. I can put this meme up, and everybody like Evan sitting there is going to look and know exactly what I mean. But am I going too far in making light of it? So those are the balance and the questions that lawyers have to go through. So I think it's really funny that that's something that you remember.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely stuck out. It stuck out to me as one of the strange points of the trial that was kind of funny.
What about a couple of the times when Georgia Kappelman got very flustered or frustrated with a witness not answering, or $80,000 is a lot of money, isn't it? And, you know, especially with Bailey or whatever the lawyer expert was, the family law lawyer expert. What did you think of those exchanges?
I appreciated her being so real in that moment because that's also how I felt from the jury box listening to Linda Bailey duck that question.
It's so funny. I love to hear you say that because that's exactly what we were saying. I was like, there's two ways you can look at this. You can either be like, relax, Miss Kappelman, or if you feel the same way, it's a home run. And that's
Yeah,
exactly, it's like if the jury feels the same way. And a lot of times lawyers can pick up on that. Not to say you guys were giving facial expressions or anything like that, but when you feel like a jury is with you in a case and exactly what you said, that's how you felt, it's a home run then. It's a home run in that position.
yeah, I really enjoyed her style of presenting during examining and cross-examining, and I think she did it. She was very very talented.
She is. She's awesome. She's a really, really good trial lawyer. Okay, let's flip it to the defense side. What do you think they did well throughout the trial?
I think Mr. Zellman did a very good job of keeping a professional demeanor that related to the emotional stake that was in this case. I felt that at no point in time did I ever feel like they at no point in time did I ever feel like they were getting too over emotional or defensive in the case. I'm having trouble trying to word how I'm saying it, but I felt he was very professional in the way he presented himself in regards to the stake that the case was. It's a very sensitive subject. It was. And I felt that that's something that his his counterpart there fumbled on a couple of spots, which I felt could be picked up on in the courtroom.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. So basically, I think what you're saying, and I'll compare it to some other trials we've watched. sometimes lawyers could be a little condescending or flippant about certain things with such a serious situation going on with some witnesses just to win a cross-examination battle. And he didn't really do that. He kept it professional. He kept it about the law. He was asking questions about the law specifically and, getting his points across. I thought he had a couple really good cross-examination sessions. I heard you talking about the jailhouse snitches, for lack of a better term, and how you really tried to take what they said with a grain of salt. Do you think some of that had to do with his cross-examination and what he kind of brought out, that they maybe had some other motivations to trying to make this as good a testimony as they possibly could for themselves?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that that's where he shined the most was probably during those cross examinations because whenever they came up, I have said very clearly before that those witnesses, just based off of their circumstances, I'm already kind of iffy on. But whenever he would start asking them questions and they would be going back and forth on certain things, I think he did a very good job there.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And then some of what they didn't do good on the defense side. I know we've got some unprepared comments already. What else do you think was not as great of a presentation in connection with the jury? And you're not saying they're bad lawyers or they did a bad job or they're bad people or anything like that. It's just this specific case with how they're trying to connect with you and convince you of something or shine a light on the reasonable doubt in this case. Where do you think they fell kind of short?
I well, in hindsight now, it's with your mention that Donna had switched lawyers so much. Now it makes a little bit more sense that I'm not sure what their prep time was because they did feel very much like this had been rushed for them to put it together. I know that there were multiple points that they would have to stop midway through examining or cross-examining to go and speak to one another and take three minutes or so before they would come back.
So you notice that, and that's
Yeah.
something we don't ever know as the lawyers. Like, how much are they picking up on? We have to take a break, or every time before cross, we've got to take a timeout so we can discuss something. You guys, as the jury, picked up on, or you specifically picked up on that?
Yeah, which doesn't always necessarily feel unprepared. Sometimes it came off as just wanting to be thorough, which I can appreciate absolutely. But it is something that I did feel like was a contrast to the prosecutors.
Yeah. Aaron asked, "Were you annoyed at how unprepared they were? What were kind of your feelings when you connected unprepared with these lawyers? What were the feelings you had about it?"
I wouldn't say annoyed. I try to be pretty level headed. I get it, and their jobs that are very stressful, and I get wanting to be as thorough as possible when you're the defense attorney. So if you feel the need to go back and get a second opinion, even midway through cross examination or examining your witness, I'm not going to hold that against you. I completely understand.
So you talked about being a public defender at the beginning, and you've talked about through this case how you really appreciated what the prosecutors did. Why are you thinking defense side and not go back as a public servant prosecuting cases, putting the bad guys in prison?
I think it's just not how I am as a person, and that's which is funny enough because the prosecution is what really inspired me from this. But I, I do like some community service work with Duke University, their School of Nursing over up in Montana on Native American reservations,
Oh, cool.
and stuff like that is what I really enjoy, like helping people that need help. And the state of Florida doesn't need help. The state of Florida has plenty of resources and plenty of lawyers that are itching to work for them. But there's plenty of people that are in situations that may or may not be their fault that need good representation. And I'd love to be the person that was good representation for them.
Are you thinking about going out of state then?
Potentially in the future, I'm probably wanting to go to Florida State for my law degree
Well, it
eventually.
is the Harvard of the South, so I understand
Right.
why you'd want to go there.
Eventually, though, I would love to look into doing like representation for like Native American tribes that need some sort of legal representation. Uh, any form of like pro bono work that I could do would be
That's
awesome.
awesome. That's cool. I don't even I know it's like a completely different set of rules and everything you have to do there. That's cool. I mean, I actually think of all the lawyers I know and all the people I know, I don't think I've ever heard that somebody wants to do that. So my guess is that there is definitely a need. That there's definitely a need and people will be welcoming you with open arms when you get there eventually. Uh, I know that you said you've gotten called for jury service like 5 times already,
Right.
which is crazy. Is this the first jury you actually ended up on?
Yeah, and part of that is probably because I weasel my way out of it a little bit.
And that's what I
Um,
want to get into for a second. So, what would you do when you say you weaseled your way out of it? What would you do?
whenever the lawyers are questioning me about like like whenever they're asking me questions and other ones, I've had some criminal stuff where it's been picked up. I have a really close friend who's a police officer outside of Orlando. And so sometimes when they'll ask about that, I would push me like, yeah, my best friend is a police officer, and they're like, well, would that be something that would potentially stop you from being on the jury? And I'm like, maybe. I don't know. Like I wouldn't. I'm not gonna lie to them and
Yeah.
say yes, I'm not able to be on this jury because
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
one of my best friends is a police officer. But I would say that and know that they're probably not going to pick me just because of that.
Just like hesitation is all it takes sometimes.
Right.
Lawyers pick up on that hesitation and it's like, nope, we're not interested anymore. It doesn't take much to get out of jury duty. So now that you have sat on this jury, if you ever get called again, what would your thought process be now going into jury duty?
I really enjoyed this. Outside of it, like kind of shaking up my life really bad and I'm
Mhm.
being really behind in school now, getting caught up. It was an amazing experience, so I would be welcome to do it again. Although I'm not sure now that I'm pursuing a law degree how likely I would be to be selected again.
Yeah. Well, pursuing a law degree because you haven't gone to the dark side or the light side, depending on who you're asking yet. It's possible. And we've seen more recently that lawyers are getting on juries. I mean, it's very, very rare. From of all the cases I've tried, we've had one lawyer on one jury and he ended up getting booted off. It was like a 5 week, it was a long federal criminal trial. And
Wow.
he ended up getting off like in the third week because he had something come up to where he had to leave and he was pissed when he got picked. But he was a civil lawyer. So sometimes different specialties and a family law lawyer ends up on a criminal case or something like that. So it does happen, but it is very, very rare. The more you get into the legal field to end up on a jury. But I think that going into the legal field now, especially if you want to be a public defender for at least part of your career, to understand how important it is to take jury duty seriously and how much of a difference you can make as a juror, what you can learn from being a juror. Was it a pretty diverse jury? Was it different ages, races, genders, things like that?
Yeah, I don't think that she could have asked for a more fair or a better jury.
And that's also really important, which is why people like you need to make sure they end up on jurors, right? Because everybody that shows up there is a little bit different, has a little bit different of a background. Even if you look the same, or even if people may think you're the same, there's something different in your background that you bring a different perspective to the table that makes it so important and can literally change people's lives. And it can put you in a position now to help people that may have never gotten help if you never ended up on this jury. And I think people really don't understand how much the judicial process affects or can affect your life. And after going through this process, how does it make you look at our criminal justice system as a whole differently than before you were ever a juror?
I'm beyond impressed by the jury system. Because before this is my first direct experience with it. Before I thought like in theory it is a good system because people do care usually about stuff like this. And I really noticed that when we got into deliberation, that everyone was so thorough and open and communicated so well and took it so seriously. And it was really nice to see that. And now I have like full faith in our jury system.
So, what did you guys feel like when you got the jury instructions and throughout the whole process? Basically, did it feel like a crash course? Did you feel like you knew what you were doing? Was it because of the instructions? Was it because of the judge? Or was it because of the lawyers and jury selection, opening statements, closing arguments?
I think it's a combination of all three. But when you get in there, it's kind of hard to know where to start. And I said that before that we got in there and we're like, well, I expected the room to like erupt into people trying to speak about it, and it was kind of quiet for a little bit. And we were like, well, where do we start here? And then we having the jury instructions there was incredibly helpful though to be able to have some sort of organization to the way that we had our discussion.
Was there anything that was confusing to you, or you guys were like, I'm not sure what this means? Let's go back and read it again? Because I've had some friends that have sat on juries and I've talked to other jurors and they're like, yeah, this one we didn't understand. So we went back and read it again and then we understood it. Or this is why we had a jury question. You guys didn't have any questions, or was it all pretty like when you went back there, you understood because of all the instruction you'd been given throughout?
Right. The spiel that they give us beforehand helps a little bit, and I also feel like you said before, you never know who's going to be put on the jury because you get so many different people from so many different walks of life
Mhm.
that I feel like they kind of intentionally make them dummy proof a little bit. That they were very easy to follow and easy to read the guidelines. And then also being able to ask questions at any point that we have a question, being able to pause and ask a question about the jury instructions is helpful, even though we luckily didn't have to at any point.
Yeah, you set dummy proof, not me. Okay, because everybody's like, don't dumb down the jury, but that's kind of what we want to do because we're putting people in positions that they've never been in before. They're not trained in this, right? Maybe one day you will be, but right now you're not. And you go back there and you have the biggest decision in this person's life literally in your hands as somebody who has never done this before. Was there anybody on the jury that had been on juries before?
I don't recall. I think there may have been one or two that were on like small jury roles before.
Mhm.
Um, but I think the majority of people in there, it was their first. This is their first go around.
Yeah, and that's normally how it is. That is normally how it is. All right, there's a couple questions here from the chat we'll get to. Sandy said, "How far into your engineering degree were you? Are you having to start all over again?" People are really worried about this career change for you.
I'm very very blessed that I'm a sophomore. So luckily I'm not too far in.
Yeah, that and I saw some other comments in the chat like I think he's just coming off the high of being on this trial. He doesn't know what he's getting into to be a lawyer. Sounds like it's not all glitz and glamour. It's not you're not trying to do it for some get rich quick scheme.
No,
It seems like
it's
you're
gonna be
going into it
grueling.
and you're gonna
My
go
mom
ahead.
is just finished her legal studies degree and is looking into law school now as well, which I'm incredibly proud of her. And she's been
It's
one of my biggest
amazing.
pushes for it. Um, and she's been trying to get me to change my degree to legal studies for a while or something similar to that because she thinks it'd be a good fit for my personality.
That's awesome.
I fear she may have been right.
Well, yeah, it's not too late. You didn't wait too long at least. Because I had some people in law school with me that were like 36 years old, second career, and they're crushing it now. They love it. And I mean, it's such a cool degree to have because you can do so many different things with it. That I still encourage people to go to law school. There are a lot of lawyers that are like, no, why would you ever want to do that to yourself? I think as long as you go in with the right mindset and you don't think that you're going to be able to snap your fingers and be rich without working hard, like if you go into it with the right reasons, I think it still is a really great profession. Priya said, talk about FSU, the Harvard of the South. We've already been there. We've already been there.
Yeah,
Um,
I actually am at TSC right now at the community college. I'm supposed to be transferring this upcoming year. Will be my first year at FSU, but I'm really excited. I've been using their campus facilities and Stroger Library a ton, so I'm
yep.
excited to finally be a student there.
Yep. So is TSC what TCC used to be, or is that different? Okay.
Yeah, they did a little bit of a rebrand. I think it's because they offer 4-year degrees now that there's
Same thing here.
a name
So
change.
yeah, St. Pete Junior College. It used to always be SPJC. Now it's just St. Pete College from where I'm from. But I'm so old. When I was in Tallahassee, it was just TCC. That's cool.
Yeah, it's
Rebecca, go ahead.
no, no, that was it. That was it.
Rebecca said in North Dakota, you cannot get into law school without a 3.8 GPA, which is what my niece tells me because I wasn't even close to that in nursing. However, so I do think the interesting thing about law school is, yes, they want a lot of the other stuff, volunteer hours. Like I had a bunch of community service hours when I went in. I was in different clubs, did intramural stuff. But the top two things, without a doubt, in every college, you can go look on what their median GPA and LSAT scores are. And if you beat both of those, you have a pretty high chance of getting into those law schools, which I think is cool because you should kind of have an idea of what you're doing and where you can go. And if you want to practice in Florida, I think it's really important to go to law school in Florida. Now, if you go Ivy League or something like that, those are great everywhere. But if you're going to somewhere that's in the same tier, I would say go where you're going to go in the state that you want to practice, because if you want to do environmental law, a lot of big firms do that. And you're more likely to have somebody that went to Florida, Florida State, Stetson, whatever, that's the decision maker in those firms than Auburn or Georgia or whatever, some other law school in another state. That's a big state law school.
Absolutely, and I'm not sure exactly where I want to end up. I mean, I've been in Florida all my life, so the goal right now is to shoot for Florida State. I'll probably throw some Hail Marys at different schools, but and see where I end up. And I'm kind of open to practice wherever, and I don't necessarily know that I will be living in the United States for my entire life. So there's a lot up in the air.
Yeah. Oh, that's even cooler. That's even more interesting than if you end up outside the country. But yeah, I mean, that leaves you pretty open for law school then. Like you're open to a bunch of different options and a bunch of different opportunities, which I think would be cool. Did I hear you say that you might do military route as well?
That's right. Yeah. So I was looking into. I've spoken to a recruiter at the Coast Guard about setting out a path for becoming a JAG officer. So I was
Mhm.
looking into potentially signing a contract either after I finish my bachelor's to go straight in as an officer, or starting with a contract as a enlisted.
That's cool. I had a buddy a really good friend who did that for medical school, and then my partner was in the army before law school. So he would be a cool person to talk about that as well. And you can feel free to reach out to us literally anytime to talk about any of this. A bunch of people are saying like, "Hey, we need updates from Evan and his career." So keep in contact with us for sure. And if there's ever anything I can do, I'd love to help you out because I think this is cool. I think your mission is really cool. What you want to do, and we need lawyers like you, which is not very common. Your mom's new accountant said, born and raised res kid from Northeast Montana. Thank you for thinking of our people and wanting to help Evan. Like, truly, that is an unusual calling that you have right now. Truly.
That warms my heart. I appreciate that support.
I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of it out there. There's going to be a lot of it out there. Joanne said, Evan, what did your parents say when you told them you wanted to switch your major?
And my mom was as excited as she could be. I mean, she's been the one that was pushing me toward this to begin with. So she was she kind of got the "I told you so" on me a little bit.
Yep. That's awesome. That's awesome. So they know us better than we know, than we care to admit.
Right.
Um, did you find Fulford's folksy manner genuine? I didn't. Thank you and fellow jurors for an excellent job. Georgia was all of us in that frustrating moment. So, what did you think about a little bit of the ho hum kind of nature, or I don't do a lot of technology, or sorry, moving the podium around and just kind of like trying to. And this is I'll just tell you, I don't know her personally, but I do know lawyers that purposely try to fumble around or make the jury think, oh, shucks, that lawyer, that kind of thing. What did you take from her demeanor?
I don't know. I found it fine. I didn't think it felt necessarily forced. I think she is from pretty rural North Florida, if I'm not mistaken. So it makes sense. I didn't feel like she was forcing it too much there. At least not something that's not something I picked up on or felt very strongly about. Um, I'm
Yeah.
sure she's a very fine, kind person. Uh,
Yeah.
I know a lot. She's been getting torn up a lot by people who feel very strongly about her,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't say that I necessarily do have a strong negative opinion about her.
Her demeanor didn't bother me at all. Like, it literally didn't bother me at all. But again, I've seen a million lawyers argue things a million different ways. So demeanor, I don't put a lot into unless they're like a jerk. If they're a jerk to a witness and you're like, oof, or like if they are, I don't want to use too strong of language, but like an idiot, like if they just seem dumb and some of the, like if you like don't know what you're talking about, we've had some lawyers like that, or objecting to their own questions and stuff. You got to be careful. And again, it's all about preparation when you go into it to make sure that you don't make those kind of mistakes that are obvious in front of a jury.
Right. And she felt like a little bit ditzy, but I wouldn't say it was anything that felt like egregious or
Mm-hmm.
like she was never rude that I felt, and it didn't feel forced at all, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Music of My Soul said, did the jury love Judge Everett as much as we did?
Oh, we adore Judge Everett more than anybody else, probably.
Which is, again, incredibly common. The jury almost always loves the judge. The judge is like mom or dad, king or queen of the courtroom, always taking care of the jury. The jury is the top priority. That's how it should be. And that's the feeling you should have for the judge. So, no surprise there. Rebecca said, amen. We do need his help in IHS. Schmoopy said, thank you, Peter, for everything. You're a good man. My son, who I emailed you about today, is in the ER. I'll have to reschedule our call. Okay. All right. We can reschedule our call. Another person asking if you loved Judge Everett as much as we did.
Yeah.
What did you think about Donna shaking her head and reacting dramatically after she heard the verdict? Did you feel bad, like she was being? Did he feel bad, or felt like she was being manipulative?
I did I don't see it feel like the verdict was wrong is one thing. I feel like the her reaction did make me feel a little bit like, oh, this is not fun. But I didn't expect it to be fun or an enjoyable experience going out there and hearing this woman be read that she's likely going to spend the rest of her life in prison. So it was kind of what I expected it to be, but it was a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, and that's another just interesting thought for you. What was it like knowing what you'd done? Like, was nobody surprised she's getting life in prison, right? You guys all knew that was going to be the sentence. They had talked about it with other defendants. What did it feel like when you made that decision, knowing that was the fate of Don Adelson, that you were about there to go out there and look her in the eye when she finds out the decision you guys made?
It's I mean, exactly how I felt like it was going to be. It was just it's such a sad situation, and it's not that it's like unwarranted or undeserved. Like I'm glad that that there's justice being served for this, absolutely. But I anticipated it to feel more gratifying to have that the verdict be read and feel like wow, I did something good. And at the end of it all, the energy in the room is just sad for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's impossible to know what it's going to feel like when you walk out there. When you're the lawyer standing next to somebody waiting to hear their fate, it's brutal, right? I mean, it's the most stressful, anxious part of the job. And you can only do what you can only do. And what you have control over is already done. And now it's in the hands of the jury and you just wait. It's a brutal feeling.
Right. Yeah, I can't imagine being on that side of it.
Well, maybe one day you'll get that feeling yourself.
Yeah.
Ken said, "Hey, Evan, thank you so much for taking time to chat with the Lawyer You Know crew. Hopefully the chat will be gentle. The chat's always very nice. Chat's always very nice here. You're never going to get anything too bad here. Look at Rebecca. Thank you for your service, sir." So hopefully you do take that route. I think that'd be really cool too. That'd be about as admirable of a route as you could possibly take. And I hope you stick with that, because sometimes people can get jaded or things can change easily or, just like that, something can change, which is fine if that happens to be you. But if it doesn't, I think that would be a really, really cool story to tell. And having this experience as a juror when you're a lawyer later would be unbelievable when you talk to clients about it and what a
Right.
jury is thinking, at least your jury, and how to make sure you help the jury understand what their job is. Because I've heard you talk about this already, but if somebody's going to ask you what is the job of the jury in a case like this, how would you describe it?
Oof. Honest to pay attention and take your job seriously. Um, I feel like it's easy in a trial like this to lose focus because of its length and some of the evidence that's presented can be a bit tedious to go through. But I feel like like the biggest job is to make sure that you're realizing the scope of what you're dealing with and that this is another person's life that you are making the decision on.
Yeah. I mean, listening and paying attention is more than half the battle. Just staying in it and knowing you're there to make a big decision, but don't jump to any conclusions. Wait till you hear all the evidence and all the argument. Go back there, discuss it, weigh it appropriately, understand the burdens. Yeah, I mean, listening and paying attention is more than half the battle in these cases. And we've had jurors in cases we've seen people falling asleep or trying to take out their phone and look at it or whatever it may be, and it's not good. Not good.
That's a bad look.
Yeah, it's really bad. Priya said, "What would you change about the jury system? Is there anything you can think of that you would change from just this experience?"
Not that I can say. That's such a tough question. It's such a huge and integral part to our justice system. I don't know that I would change anything about it. I felt like having the alternate jurors not be able to be there for like I get them not being allowed to be in the deliberation because you don't want them to infect that for the primary jurors, but not being there afterwards or not being kept around. Some of them were excited because they didn't have to stay there till like 7:30 and they
Yeah,
got to leave at a more reasonable time. But I was saying I would have hated if I were an alternate because I felt that I had put a lot of effort into making my notes and to paying attention, and I wouldn't have not loved not being able to be there for the rest of it to see it through.
that's always a tough part for the lawyers too. It's like, sorry.
Yeah,
I almost feel like I lied to him. It's like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We may have needed you, but we didn't. That's always the worst when they walk out, and I'm like, my
yeah.
bad. Especially the ones that really wanted to be there. Rebecca said, "Come to the University of North Dakota if you want to practice Indian health law." Interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I'll
Dakotas.
look into it.
That's cool. Bees on Mars said, "Florida is the perfect state for anything related to conservation, environmental science, etc. Especially a big industry has a presence here. We need ethical lawyers." Also, I'll never be saying that on my channel. Never be
I'm
saying
actually
that on my channel.
I'm actually a Gator.
We don't need to talk
As
about it.
much as I want to go to FSU's law
We don't
school,
need.
I'm a Gator fan.
But you're making good decisions now. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. Don't forget to recommend moot court. Have you looked into or heard anything about mock trial, moot court, things like that in law school?
I've not.
So mock trial is what it sounds like, a fake trial. You get to be the lawyer in it, argue the case. It's amazing. Moot court is like a fake appeal where you do the research, come up with the arguments, write the appellate brief, and then you go do a fake oral argument where judges are firing questions at you. It's amazing. Those are my two favorite things I did in law school. They usually recommend to only do one of mock trial, moot court, and law review. Law review is writing the articles, doing the research, the case citations. Usually the smartest of the smart kids do that in law school. But those are kind of the three big ones. There are other journals and other things you can do as well. But if you're going to, want to do anything in the courtroom, mock trial and moot court, I mean, I couldn't recommend them enough, frankly.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. My high school had a mock trial that I felt like I really missed out on because I didn't realize that we had it until like senior year, and it seemed really, really cool. That's something I'll definitely look into.
Yeah. I think it's worth it. It's amazing. Recommend talking to Carl Steinbeck about JAG. Okay. I don't know who that is. Maybe that's
I'm
somebody
not familiar with the name. I'll have to write that down.
I have a buddy that we work with a lot who's a criminal defense lawyer in Key West in Orlando. He has offices. And he was a JAG for a long time. So I can definitely put you in contact with him. He's an awesome guy. And he refers us personal injury cases and stuff because he does mostly criminal. But he's an awesome guy. He'll be an awesome resource for you and was in Florida as well.
Yeah, that'd be
and
fantastic.
This guy, Carl, as well. I felt like during the defense, I was getting yelled at. Did you feel that way? Also, what was your favorite snack provided by Judge Everett and Costco? So did you feel like the defense was kind of screaming at you during their case at all? And then what was your favorite snack?
I didn't think so. I felt like she just had a different way of presenting. She was very passionate. Mr. Zellman, I felt, kept a very strong composure. I never felt like I was being, especially not me specifically, I never felt like I was being yelled at or that they were interacting in an unprofessional way necessarily. As far as the snacks, I have unfortunately been on a cut for about a year and a half now, so I'm not even allowed to I just had to watch and just be hungry the whole time.
So the snacks looked good to you, but you didn't have a favorite one yourself.
Yeah.
The better they were, the worse for you, frankly. It's like, I wish they would have been just snacks.
I wish he had just put terrible snacks in there so I didn't have to be sitting there in the courtroom going, God,
exactly.
I hate all of you.
Peter, you mentioned Alan Jackson. Will you be following the Frazier Bohm case? That's the one I was just mentioning over in California. Also, thanks for having Evan on again. So, do you know anything about the true crime space? Did you ever follow it at all? Do you have any interest in it, or no? Just this is your first experience with it. All these interviews.
I have some interest that's come out of this. I've been watching a little bit of stuff about the Adelson case now, going back specifically about Charlie's too, since that's all new information to me. So I've been diving into it a little bit, but this is all brand new. I've never really been a big true crime guy before this.
But you're going back and watching the old Adelson trials specifically.
Right.
Cool. That's cool. What's that like to see how different each trial's been?
It's neat. I haven't had a ton of time, unfortunately. I know a lot of the videos for them are 2 hours long and multiple hours, but I've dipped in and watched a few clips that have been sent to me from from Charlie's trial that has been interesting to see.
Do you guys have a group chat of the jurors? Are you guys all talking about that stuff?
I don't have anyone's contact information, actually.
That's awesome. Panduffel said, how did the four persons process feel? She seemed thumbs up. I don't know.
She was great. Means, but I mean, the process that we had going through it was driven. JC honestly kept control whenever we would when multiple conversations would start to break out. JC was great though. I very much enjoyed. I sat next to her throughout the entire thing and then through deliberation, and I am very fond of her. That's awesome. I know some people have strong opinions of her based off of just her being on TikTok, which I don't get, but
it's honestly, people have a lot of strong opinions about a lot of things. You could imagine that sometimes it happens on places like this. There are some very amazing, nice people, and they're the vast majority, and the people that come hang out and have really good questions. But there are always people that are going to try to ruin someone's day behind a keyboard. And for my advice to her would just be forget that. You did your duty. You're having fun. You're talking about it now. It's interesting. People can really learn from what you guys are talking about. That's what I love about our jury system, and the fact that you can't talk about it. In some countries, you're not allowed to talk about it, which that's where corruption can happen. That's where darkness can happen. When you shine a light, then things are all above board. Transparency is good. We can all learn and have people be less afraid of the justice system. That's what I try to do on my channel is you don't have to be afraid of it. There's really good people and thoughtful people that end up on juries. And when we hear from you guys, I think that can, like you said, you're way more confident in the jury system now than before you were a juror, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, to me, I think that's awesome. Jessica said, oops, I meant to say during the defense closing, I felt like I was getting yelled at. Did you feel that way?
I felt like she was very passionate, and I feel like that was kind of a I don't know. Maybe just a stylistic choice by her for the way of presenting her closing argument. But no, I didn't feel yelled at. I did feel like she was very very into it though, and was preaching to us almost.
What did you think of the son's testimony? Maybe they're talking Rob Adelson.
I thought Rob's testimony was good. I was feel terrible for Rob's situation, so
Oh,
that was kind of a very gray feeling in the room.
I can't imagine that. Like, I literally couldn't imagine if this was my family now and I'm ending up in the chair here testifying, helping putting my mom in prison for the rest of her life, but also thinking that my parent or my mom and brother had something to do with this. Like somebody that was part of our family, I mean,
It
that's,
it's it feels like something that would just be out of a TV show and unreal, like his circumstances, and I feel terrible for him.
I agree. I agree. Difficult question from John. Why bring your opinion to social media? I agree with you, but why put your face into this? I'm friendly, but a fair question. What held you back? I guess what didn't hold you back? What made you want to talk about it?
They may be referencing JC there. Why would she
Maybe.
go out and immediately want to go into and
But
speak
you
about
don't
it
know
on
what
social
she's
media?
thinking. So why
Yeah,
would you want to come out and talk about it?
for me, I'm a pretty open person about most things, and I don't really mind being on camera too much. So it didn't bother me. I know a lot of people are interested to hear about it, and felt like a really unique experience as well. Like I feel like if I had decided to just not talk about it after and go back to my normal life, I feel like I would look back in hindsight and be like, wow, I kind of wish I had gone and just gotten the full experience of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think more information is always better. Whatever happened back there in the jury room, whatever you guys talked about, it happened. So people talking about it and being honest about it doesn't change what happened. It just, like I said, makes transparency available to everybody to understand the process better. That's the way I look at it. Richard the Magician said, Peter, did you mention that you knew Dan Markel? Yeah, I graduated from Florida State in 2013. And the shooting happened in 2014. And I took one of Dan Markel's seminars on sentencing, and I heard him speak a bunch of times. Brilliant, super brainiac, smart guy, big time criminal lawyer. So he taught criminal law as well, the 1L class. My section didn't have him. We had Cohen. I was actually just talking about this in a group chat with some of my law school buddies. How we did. It was not our favorite teacher or professor in law school, but yeah, Dan Markel, really smart guy. Wasn't a professor I was close to at all. Knew who he was. Just wild to think. Wendy was there as well while I was there. It's wild to think all this happened with professors at a law school that I was there, and that's how I first heard about it. Obviously, is you hear about this shooting in suburban Tallahassee in broad daylight from somebody that was literally on campus every day with you as a law student. And it is jarring and just wild to think about. Absolutely wild to think about.
It's insane, and I've heard some of his students speak about him, and one of my professors now was a student who has a friend that was a student of Mr. Markel's, and just nothing but just great things to say about him. It's truly a tragic loss.
And he was definitely going up the ladder. Like he was going to be an Ivy League professor for sure, tenured somewhere, no doubt about that.
100%.
And what's really cool too is you can even go back to listen to some of his stuff on YouTube and some of the stuff that he did. Big time proponent of presumption of innocence beyond a reasonable doubt, holding the state to their burden, people's Fifth Amendment right, their Sixth Amendment right, protecting the constitutional rights of criminal defendants, not over sentencing people, where those issues come in, recidivism rates. Like he was an expert on all of that. And it's really, really interesting to think of what he would have thought, how he would have covered his own case is kind of a really interesting and sad thing to think about just because of how brilliant he was.
Right.
Sandy said, what did the jury think of Wendy?
I don't know that about her demeanor up on the testimony. I don't know that we spoke too much in regards of like necessarily how she acted as much as just her answers to the questions. I I don't know. I don't have any strong feelings to say about Wendy. Um,
If this was Wendy's trial and she was the criminal defendant and they presented the same exact evidence, do you think they would have had enough to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she was involved in the conspiracy in one way or the other?
to me, no, I would not have been able to based off what we're presented now. But it's also hard to answer that because the evidence that we're presented was specifically for Donna, and the way they may
Absolutely.
lay it out would be completely different potentially.
Absolutely. Could be way more evidence. It can be presented in a different way. They would obviously be focusing on her. None of that happened in this case. It was all about Donna, as it should be. Her testimony, she was actually given immunity for her testimony in this trial, but just for that, not for anything else that they have or
Right.
the other information that they've gotten outside of her testimony at trial. So that necessarily wouldn't be in her trial as well. And you got to hear from her. So obviously, a very different set of circumstances. I tend to agree with you. Not that my opinion matters very much because I wasn't sitting on the jury, but I tend to agree with you that they didn't present enough, even though the story kind of tells itself. Like, why would they do all this if Wendy didn't know? You know, she's the one that maybe benefited the most for what happened.
Yeah.
But
I don't necessarily know that my opinion has much weight or value there either, since what like you said, I was on the jury, but not for Wendy. So it's going to be a different person who doesn't even know yet. That's gonna that whose opinion really matters on this.
yeah, yeah, because you're not on Wendy's jury, and you're not going to be. But that's one jury you won't be picked for if
Yep.
it ever happens. I'll tell you
Yeah.
that.
That's certainly true.
Rebecca said, Peter, you provide such a good platform. Thank you, Rebecca. And people like Evan make it fun and easy to come on here and just talk through this stuff so we can learn together. Azam said, Evan, important question. Have you subbed to the lawyer you know yet? Maybe
I
after this
have.
weekend. Oh,
I
yeah.
have.
Okay,
I
great.
did. I was sent the live stream where you were going over my interview on
Oh, cool.
SDS. So I watched a little bit of that
Awesome.
while it was live, and then I subscribed while I was there.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That's awesome. Thank you, Azam, for the question. Great interview. By the way, can you cover the Colts neck mansion case in New Jersey? Trial got delayed, but the practical defense laws are great. So you said you've gone back and kind of looked at the Adelson case. Have you looked at any other high profile or true crime cases?
I intend to. I really do want to after this. I've just been so swamped, and that's truly. I will for certain. Like you'll probably I'll probably reach out to you to have you
Absolutely, man.
catch me up to speed on some of what's going on in
Absolutely.
the legal world.
The line is open. The line is open for sure. So and you keep saying you're swamped. So you worked school and on the jury at the same time over those 2-3 weeks?
That's right. And I'm so behind in school now. I'm as soon as we finish up here, I'm going to be going over to a lab report to try to finish that. I was not there for any of the classes, so I'm not sure how I'm gonna do on it.
That's brutal. When is your switch coming to whatever your new major is going to be?
Next semester is when
Okay.
my classes will start. So for this one, I'm still stuck in my classes for focused on engineering, but
Are you
yeah,
going to end up with
next
like a minor in engineering or anything like that?
I don't know. I haven't put a lot of thought into it yet because luckily I'm not very far into it. I'm about
Okay.
a year and a half
Mhm.
into. I'm like midway through my sophomore year, so luckily this should be a pretty easy switch because most of what I've done in the past year has been general ed stuff.
Yeah, that's good. Because I took so much biology stuff my first year, they were like, "You're only 2 classes away from having a biology minor." I don't think I ever did it. I can't remember, but it literally doesn't matter. So, it's like
Right,
unless you really want to say like I also have a minor in this, it's like just do the best you can on what you need to get done before law school because you'll have plenty of school to go through with law school.
right.
John said, as a regular, or Susan C. as a regular deserves a happy birthday shout out. She's a legend. Cool to see our regulars keep showing up. Happy birthday
Happy
to
birthday.
Susan. Yeah, that's awesome. Emily said, Massachusetts needs help. They have too many scorned women judges. Peter, will you ask your dad? Will he be a judge in Massachusetts? He seems level-headed and fair. I don't think that's quite how that works. We're not barred in Massachusetts, so I don't think we could be judges there. But I've heard some rumblings about something that happened in another Massachusetts case. Evan, if you ever look into some crazy cases and potential corruption, Massachusetts might be a place to start. And speaking of that, Lindsay Bay said, Peter needs to interview Auntie Deb, aka Jimmy from the Karen Reed trial. It would be a phenomenal matchup. I'm recommending it. So I think this is the guy that did. There wasn't as much during Adelson's trial, which I found interesting. Maybe it's because it wasn't quite as long. But in some of these trials, like Johnny Depp and Karen Reed, and some of the huge true crime trials, they did these like memes, and this guy would dress up like the judge and do like a spoof of the judge. Yeah, they did not like this judge as much as everybody liked Judge Everett.
Wow.
And it was hilarious. Some people had sent me some clips, and it was truly hilarious. So,
Yeah, that's
well,
bizarre.
if you dive down into the true crime pool, you'll see that there's some wild stuff going on. Any other questions that you have about law school, about the tracks, about anything that we can answer here before we sign off?
I'm certain that I'll have plenty to come, but that I can think of now. I think you've touched everything that I could think of.
We're going to let you get to your lab report. I appreciate you so much being here, Evan. Everybody hit the like button. Say something nice to Evan here on the way out. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, we are out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe.
You can also follow us on Instagram, X, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast featuring new episodes every week. And if you have a case that you want to personally talk to us about in your life, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, truck accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com.
And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.